Coogs House. The Houston Cougars are building something decent with their football program. We kind of got something to be proud of here. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars, and I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below if you are the kind of person that enjoys pineapple on your pizza. It's just kind of a common argument around the Ainsworth household. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. More of that in a moment. That's a fun game for those for the competitive like myself and like to win a lot. We got a fun and exciting show to get into here with you. We want to talk some about the unfortunate news going down in Florida. We got to talk some about Sam Brown, Ruben Unije, and other Houston Cougars moving on. We got to talk some about the NFL draft first and foremost, but we do want to first extend best wishes out to former Houston Cougar alum Tank Dell. Was injured in a shooting over the weekend in Florida. Sounds like minor injury. Sounds like the kind of thing people anticipate recovery from. More on that later. But obviously want to start the show by saying, first and foremost, make sure everyone sends some good thoughts to Tank and send those his way. First thing I got into today is the NFL draft of the weekend was a big deal for the Houston Cougars because obviously, if you're paying attention on Friday night in the second round, Patrick Paul went number 55 overall to the Miami Dolphins, extending the streak of Houston having a player draft in the NFL to 9 straight years. That's every season since 2016. Houston has had a player drafted in the NFL. The majority of those seasons obviously being a group of 5 program. I think that speaks into itself how strong the program is. But I want to kind of highlight a couple things here that expand upon how great that is for the program. It's the second longest streak in school history. That's a pretty big deal. One time they went to 13 straight years. And looking around the state of Texas, there are other Division I competition. Obviously, the smaller divisions won't have people drafted back-to-back years, let alone 9 years, all that often. Baylor had no one drafted in 2024, so Baylor is out as far as active streaks go. Texas, while they had a bunch of people in the 2024 draft, had a big fat 0 in the 2022 draft. So that means their active streak is much shorter, notably. Houston, I said, has 9. Texas Tech also has 9 straight. TCU's, their streak goes all the way back to 2009. Texas A&M, their streak goes back to 2008. So you kind of got these tiers of sorts across this state where schools have had active streaks of guys drafted. But you'll notice amongst all of those, only Houston had the bulk of their player development of this sort in a time where they were in the group of 5. I said TCU was in the group of 5 for a while, but their streak started in 2009, actually right before they make the jump over to the Big 12. And, I know A&M leaves for the SEC, and I guess Texas is as well. And Baylor had some pretty low years in the program and the odds before Riles left Houston for Baylor and all of that. But I think when looking at the whole state, you really see kind of an understanding that Houston has had talented players for the duration of the last decade. And truthfully, I think that's kind of a thing that people don't associate with Houston all that well, or maybe don't connect with Houston as well as they should. Frankly, Houston puts out pros in a way that I don't think gets discussed often enough. This year in particular, yes, Patrick Paul went in the second round. It's a great, the contract there aren't quite fully guaranteed. Obviously, nothing in football is ever fully guaranteed, but good chunk of money coming his way to go play with the Miami Dolphins. As we get closer to football season and we check on some pros, I cannot express how perfect a fit Miami is for Patrick Paul. It's a nerdy, brainiac kind of offense, a lot of passing game based on speed and deception. Patrick's a great pass blocker. He's brilliant. Like, these are all things that work together. Tua Tagovailoa needs a lot of protection. You can't have him hit. Patrick Paul is really good at that. Their run game is based on deception. Like I said a second, like that works with, he does really well too. But Patrick Paul gets drafted, right? After the draft, three notable names get picked up in undrafted free agent deals. Jack Freeman looks like he's going to get to go to camp with Tampa Bay. That's a big deal for him and go show out there. A couple years. I know, obviously, one big star removed from the Super Bowl as well, but only a couple years removed from the Super Bowl there in Tampa Bay. You had David Guegbu. He is going to Buffalo. Had double check myself there. To Buffalo, playing with other former Houston Cougar and Oliver Ashley along the defensive line there. Got picked up as undrafted free agent. Just go try and make the game day roster up there. Greg, we remember, transferred from Oklahoma, looking to make a new position as an edge rusher after having been a linebacker at Oklahoma. And then the one that was surprised to me was that Nelson Caesar went undrafted. I think some of his measurables as an edge rusher might not have been what people wanted, but Nelson Caesar led the Big 12 with sacks last season. He's now heading to Seattle. If you've ever seen a franchise, you want to say program, a franchise that finds ways to maximize great talent and finds diamonds in the rough, like guys that maybe don't have the measurables like Nelson, Seattle's going to be a great place for him as well. So really some great landing spots for Houston across the board here coming out of the NFL draft. Hopefully a bunch of jerseys and helmets to post in that new facility for recruits to come by and see as they come, because I think promoting Houston as a program that puts out pros, like they might have 4 in the 2024 class, even in a season where wins and losses were kind of a disappointing result, I think is valuable to building the program, especially when you're in the Big 12 now and you're competing with other programs. Like Tech has done this 9 straight years as well. TCU has done this a little bit longer. You're competing with programs that have done this for a long, long time. We know you're in the city of Houston. You're also competing with recruits about LSU and Texas A&M and Oklahoma and those things, the big SEC boys, not da. But just in getting the program rolling and starting, to be able to consistently convey, look, we've got, even in our down year, we went 4-8, and we sent 4 dudes to the NFL. 4 dudes in the trenches, guys that get paid. Those are big-time dollar positions. Houston sent 4 to the NFL with chances to make real contracts and real money. And a down season, right? This is not talking necessarily about a few years back when you Peyton Turner or Ed Oliver both end up as first-round picks, and I think there was a year in between them there, right? But like this isn't like just talking about those kind of talents, right? Where those were really, really like football teams we knew had pro. I think the nation knew Houston's got to have a couple pros on that team. In Houston's down year, like 2016, they put 4 guys out there with a chance to have a shot at the league. Not to mention guys that are on the roster that will get a shot down the line, whether it's Parker Jenkins or Keith Cooper. You can even go to a Boogie Johnson with the speed he's got. Like, is that so enticing? Like, that could all be building in this program as well. I just mean on last year's team that are already taking their shot at the big leagues, you've got 4 of them. And I think that that's an aspect of this program and recruiting high school talent that gets undersold, right? We think about comparing NIL dollars. We think about comparing facilities, and we're building all of that out. We're building new facilities. We got boosting coming in the NIL thing. Things are growing on that front, right? Certainly a lot bigger than it was a year ago and a lot bigger than it was 2 years ago, right? Even if it's slow and steady. But this idea that we're also putting people in the pros on the down years, I think is really, really important. Now, I think it's really important is competing and winning and not having those down years. I don't know if you've heard this, but I am a particularly competitive person, and I really, really love, at least the competitive person really loves, this game Monopoly Go, because it's kind of the ultimate game where you get to compete with your friends and do a little bit of trash talking or a little bit of team building or anything in between. Now, listen, I understand you've heard me talk about this for a while now, But trust me, there's all kinds of aspects of it that you have not yet discovered. You can team with your friends for different time tournaments where you work together and build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more kinds of awesome prizes you get to unlock together. Unique stickers you can trade with different friends for big prizes. Cool new pieces of travel boards, funny emojis go back and forth with your buddies in on these chat rooms and that kind of stuff as well. Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of a ton of their own unique mini games like digging for treasure, robot pachinko, etc. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers, everything you win, or rent frenzy. There's always something fun to discover from Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Game on. All right, so I said I want to talk to some about former Cougs in the second segment. And admittedly, I think it's interesting to look at because I think, okay, back up. More than 24 players from Houston went in the portal in the second window of the transfer portal window after spring ball was over. And I think there was it started appropriate and got a little bit loud level of alarm going off for people like, wait a second, what's going on here? Admittedly, between there being a large amount of people going off in the winter transfer portal and a lot of people going off in this transfer portal window, I think there's just a lot of people in the transfer portal from Houston. I think we're like wondering, wait, what happened to our guys? Where are our guys going? Interestingly enough, a couple guys committed in the transfer portal over the weekend. Sam Brown, the big one, committed to Miami, right? Georgia kid commits to Miami, goes back to the East Coast. More on that in a second. Ruben Unije also committed over the weekend. Now, he's not officially a former Coug anymore. He actually had a pit stop where he did spring ball in Louisville in between. I still think of him as a former Coug. Frankly, was a friend of the show, very nice guy and kid. Had some problems in pass protection, but that's neither here nor there. Great guy. Great guy. I hope he has a great time at UCLA. You'll find in the course of the show, if you're new to the program here, I am not the guy that wishes kids poorly on the way out the door. I would make the argument, like the fact that we send guys in the NFL or whatever, that it's a better place for them in most instances, but not my problem either. What I will say, though, is that you got Sam Brown and Ruben Unije committing where they committed. And really, you're kind of looking at a lot of guys right now that seem like they're in flux and are still testing stuff out. Tevin Shaw, offensive line, in a transfer portal out of Houston earlier this spring, earlier in April. He's looking at like HBCUs, Jackson State, Hampton, Texas Southern, right? Justin Beatles committed to New Mexico State earlier this month, right? Been a lot of like radio silence around the Michaela Harrison pilot camp. He's probably the highest, definitely is the highest recruit to come in to then transfer from Houston. And I think in looking at all this, it's interesting to see that like guys are still finding, like Lucas Coley or whomever, haven't found that spot yet. And if they haven't found that spot yet, it makes you wonder what got them jumping in the first place. Now, Sam Brown to Miami. Okay, yes, East Coast kid. He's from Georgia. Miami's more or less just across the state of Florida. He's not that far in, but it's still southern Georgia. Anyway, not horribly far, much closer to home in a lot of respects, but not like in the state of Georgia, right? And remember, he actually came to Houston as a transfer from West Virginia. So some of that makes some sense. I think the part of this that makes the most sense, though, is he's reuniting with his old offensive coordinator. In his first year at Houston, he played under offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. Dawson then immediately left and packed his bags and went to Miami. And frankly, there weren't a whole lot of people upset about it, except that Houston didn't replace him last season with any actual offensive coordinator, right? I mean, that was the big problem and story of the offense last year, is that there was no coordination amongst things, to say the least. And of course, Sam Brown is going to go jump in somewhere he's comfortable. I think a big reason as far as playing style goes that you could argue he was uncomfortable in Houston is that it looks like the Houston's going to run the ball a lot next year. And Joseph Manjack is this great receiver. He's going to catch a lot of footballs. You got some other speedy guys that kind of fit the program here, like Boogie Johnson or whatever. And you're like, okay, tight end's going to be involved some too. Where were the footballs going to be for Sam Brown? Shannon Dawson knows how to get in the ball, right? Like, I think that's probably a bigger piece of this than we're giving credit for. I will say to the folks that want to make NIL the boogeyman and the root cause of all evil in college football or whatever, get with the times. I think you're a little bit too old school there. But B, Miami does have a plethora of NIL available, like money out there available for the taking. Back when this whole thing started, I think it was 100K. Someone told me it was actually 50, but everybody on the Miami football team just got it, not necessarily in a pay for play. It was some local, chain of gyms was like, hey, post on your social media that you're working out at our gym. Here's 50K, or I thought it was 100, but whatever it was, right? Just some absurd amount of money for working at a specific gym for a bunch of dudes that already work out all the time. Like, this wasn't a crazy difficult ask, right? And yes, Miami has a lot of cash to put in the NIL program. And I think that if Sam were to say that was an important deal for him and his family, I couldn't hate that either. But I think it's just pointing out that Sam is on the older side of college football. Houston's rebuilding. Houston's going to run the ball a lot. Miami has an offensive coordinator he's familiar with. He's already been seen working out with Cam Ward, their transfer quarterback, in the offseason. I think it was actually in the state of Texas recently. So he's familiar with the quarterback. I think it's one of those things where this was going to happen. And I don't know that's a big indictment on the program. Now, had he landed at another big Texas school, had he landed at another Big 12 school, I think you'd have tied all those to problems with, like, oh man, that's scary. That's whatever. This is kind of an outlier to me. I almost feel more comforted about Sam Brown's transfer because he's in a spot that might be great for him. And it doesn't tell me that there's anything horribly wrong with what's going on here. It's just not fitting with him. And it's, the sign of a good program is one with identity. And if the identities don't line up, that doesn't mean either is bad. It just means that it didn't work out. Now, Ruben, I really like Ruben. One of the reasons we had Ruben on the show back when we did is he, I think, kind of wants to get into the sports media game at some point. As a player, he can talk about he's funny. He's got some personality. He's I think he's going to be great at it whenever he gets into it. And frankly, could you pick a better city than Los Angeles to do that in? Yes, he's going to UCLA. Yes, I guess I was about to say Pac-12 program. It's now a Big Ten program, as weird as it is to say. But ultimately, the whole point of going to college in a lot of ways is to get educated and hopefully find some, career passion about afterwards with that education, right? A lot of these guys, they want that to be football, and I can't blame them for it. It sounds like a fun gig, and it's a way to continue something that we all enjoyed playing to whatever degree we got to play, however long we got to play it, right? I think that's admirable. I think that's fine. But putting yourself in Los Angeles puts you right next to a bunch of different places where you can get, tapped into all of that different media landscape in a way that Houston and Louisville, while they have opportunities, just don't have as many in that particular landscape. Again, NIL money, you say, has got a ton of it as well. If that were really the reason, or if that were whatever, that would have come as a reason. I couldn't necessarily blame him for that either. But again, I think this feels like there's other things going on. He goes to Louisville. He finds that he can, a roster, he can get some spring tape on, etc., and then gets himself out the door to the UCLA. I don't hate it, and I know people really do, and I know that might put me on an island with some of my older fans or whatever, older Houston Cougar fans are more old school in their roots, or maybe just older in the soul. Maybe not even that old, but just older in the soul, that like the old school. You sign with a program, you stay there for 4 years, no matter what coaches come in or what coaches leave. You sign up for the or whatever. I think these guys found great opportunities, and I think it's okay that that's not Houston. I think it's okay to have an identity that Houston's building towards something else, and they don't have to coincide. They don't have to correspond at all. I just do. I don't think that it worries me that much. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm unique in that. I don't know. And second, I want to talk some about Tank Dell a little bit more thoroughly, and just kind of make sure we touch all the key points there. Obviously, we open the show with telling him that we wish him the best and are sending good thoughts his way. But while we're sending out good thoughts, let's send out some good thoughts to anyone playing this weekend on FanDuel, because it's playoff time, NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. And there were a lot of games this weekend with a bunch of different weird results, some that were way too chalky, some that were way too not. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Another thing you got to focus on if you're like trying to get out there and like get your mind off these guys leaving the program, or all that's wrong in the world with Tank Dell and whatever, is go to GameTime. Download the GameTime app today and get the best prices, the best events in and around Houston or wherever you're at today. You just go to Locked On College for another $20 off while you do it, but they got all kinds of last minute deals. So as you get closer to the event, the price actually gets better for you. Flash deals will pop up along the way too. Zone deals, so you can choose a section and seat, let section and row, let GameTime do the rest of the work for you. You get an average of 18% savings in that, all in pricing. So there's no hidden fees at all. Seat views, so you're like, wait a second, what's it going to look like? They can give you a real life view from the seat in that arena for that particular event. So if you're at a sports game, or if you're at a comedy show, if you're at a theater, if you're going, whatever you're going to do for entertainment, you go to GameTime, you got the tickets, they got the best prices. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets at GameTime. Download GameTime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, so I mentioned at the top we want to send Tank Dell our best thoughts. Tank Dell was shot over the weekend. I want to preface this by saying it sounds like the injuries were relatively minor. Sounds like the event was at a sports bar and lounge in Florida. There are some videos of the aftermath that look kind of grainy, cell phone footagey. Nothing too graphic, but nothing too reportable either. People just look very scared after the fact. Sounds like a 16-year-old kid got upset with some of the stuff that was happening and came back and sprayed the crowd. And security guard actually tackled him and stopped him from doing worse damage. So to the security guards that do these kinds of heroic things, thank you. Obviously, it could have been a lot worse. So thank you to that security guard. And whoever else does these kind of heroic acts on an unfortunately far too frequent basis. I will say though that in the Tank Dell aftermath, first of all, it was nice to see in the immediate reporting that minor injury is going to be okay, right? Like first and foremost, that's the biggest thing here. He's going to be okay. It sounds like all the other 9 victims are also going to be okay. So that's good. That's good things. Immediately thereafter, because the internet will do this, things got a little bit ugly. Now, Tank Dell, I should point out, had a fairly successful rookie year, and both had fans and enemies along the way. In the 8 games he played before getting hurt, or 11 games he played before getting hurt, he started 8 of them, had 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. Pretty strong, I would say. Now, along the way there, Houston got some, Houston got some notoriety for having a bunch of young guys that were good and having fun doing it. And ultimately this offseason, the Houston Texans pulled in, Stephon Diggs, and I think it was technically a trade. It felt like free agency, whatever. This is Houston Cougars show. Tank Dell's the focus here, right? And they're building this program around guys like Tank Dell and the quarterback C.J. Stroud and Stephon Diggs and so on, the offense is going to be a lot of fun, right? I think this first got traction because people are screenshotting, tweeting, but someone named, I'm not going to actually name him. I don't want to put his name out there. Don't need to give him any pub. But apparently was tweeting that Hope's your boy, to Stephon Diggs, bleeds out. And our tweet got deleted. Apparently the person may or may not work for a large sports industry, worldwide leader kind of thing. I don't know. He may not work for them. He may not have a name worth knowing. I'm not going to mention his name on this podcast. He doesn't deserve it. What I will say though is that while it was unfortunate and awful to see that tweet go out there, again, quickly deleted. He says a screenshot. I don't think it was a screenshot. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, like, pretty clear it wasn't screenshotted. I do think, for whatever reason, there's a lot of ugly, icky things, bordering worse than that things out there about the situation. Tank Dell was out at a, bar and lounge club kind of thing with pools at it, with friends at night in Florida. And a 16-year-old kid walks in and tries to spray the crowd. Unfortunately, and we're not going to delegate this or litigate this today. Unfortunately, that's just a thing that happens, right? And it sucks and it's awful. But a lot of people are trying to pass judgments on Tank's character for this happening to him. It's not just this one particular person who deserves to be called out a little bit because it's a particularly awful thing to say. A lot of people judging Tank and the company he keeps based on this singular event as if it couldn't have happened. It's just an awful thing that happened. It could have happened anywhere. And the unfortunate reality is these things do happen anywhere. And I get tired of a lot of these conversations. I'm open the show obviously every day with that I'm a teacher and coach, and the reality of the world is, in the entirety of my teaching career now, we've had lockdown drills, right? And this is just common practice in the 21st century. And these kind of things happen. And I can't believe we're at a place where passing judgment on the character of Tank Dell, all accounts a great guy, and people really talk about being a stand-up guy, a great representation of the program, the university, and the open, and that's just awful. And while this one person that we're not naming, I think was a Buffalo Bills fan upset about Stephon Diggs leaving, being completely honest. While that is why I mentioned all the players' names in the story besides Tank. There are some Houston Cougar fans out there that are talking about the company Tank keeps and ickiness of that and the awfulness of that. And I just can't. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I just don't think that that's the response. Any response aside from, I really hope he's doing okay. God, I hope he gets better soon. Or God, I hope it wasn't that. Anything outside of hoping for the best in terms of health and long-term health for Tank was the absolute wrong answer. If you had any other, or if you saw any other reaction, I question why. I do. And it's unfortunate the way we are with the world, where the world is, where we are, where the world is. But it is. And obviously hoping for the best for Tank. Talked a lot about former Houston Cougars today, actually. Tank's great representation of Houston Cougars out there, though. And we'll be following the story. Hopefully we can tag in some good news on Tank later this week. We hear each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. Locked On Cougs is proud Locked On podcast. Is your team, our Houston Cougars, past and present, each and every day. Go Cougs.